which tree do we think is healthier? Obviously the one with the better fruit. And so we're going to ask, why is that tree doing so well? Is it the soil? Is it the sun? Is it the water it's getting?
Why is it that the Catholic cathedrals are some of the most ornate, lavish, rich temples? What do you say to that, Joe? Answer. All right, Joseph, nice to have you here.
Daniel, good to be here.
Yeah, is it? Aren't you warm, Joe?
I'm very warm.
Yeah, we can put the fan over there.
I already did.
Wait, that's why I'm like I feel like a little breeze, you know?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, guys, welcome back to Faithful Amphibian. I'm here with my good host, Joseph Silvera.
Good to be here.
They won't see it. You have to, yeah. And today we're going to be asking Joe some questions, and he's going to be answering some. So,
yeah, disclaimer, I am infallible. According to canon law, we have to give that disclaimer.
You said you are infallible?
I'm not infallible.
Yeah, okay. Correct disclaimer.
Disclaimer to that previous disclaimer. I am infallible.
You are
I am
fallible.
not infallible.
You are fallible.
However that works.
Infallible.
Yeah.
Double infallible. Anyway, so we got a few questions from our friends and family. So
sweet.
Let's get right into it. I have them all on my notes app.
There we go.
Yeah, it's nice and efficient, Joe.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, first question. It's from our friend Leanne. It's from a conversation she had with one of her friends. So the question is, what would you say to people who claim that the church is only now finally starting to recognize the importance of youth after the announcement of the upcoming canonization of Carlo Acutis? And this is based off her conversation with a friend that's not Catholic. Yeah, she heard some things from other people, so she just wants to hear more.
Yeah, I would say that he's blessed right now. He's going to become, saint soon, Carlos Acutis. He's being recognized for living a, heroic and virtuous life. He was young when he died. He will be one of the youngest saints in this current kind of time period, which is great. And that's why he's getting so much attention now. But the church has always recognized young saints and their contributions to humanity, to society, to the timeline of God. You can look back to some saints that you may already know, like Saint Joan of Arc. She was very young when she lived and was living a heroic life. If we read Timothy 4, it says, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." So, it's not like the church and the Bible and God aren't telling the youth that they are important and that they can contribute to the body of Christ here on earth. They can. And even in the Bible, which was written over thousands of years, if we look back to David was young. He was the youngest in his family, and he took down Goliath, which is no small feat. So the youth are definitely underestimated. I think that just comes with the times. And but the Bible and the church have never looked down and have actually exalted equally with all the other saints their importance.
Yeah. And it's also like sometimes the concern comes from a really good thing, because all those old people that are being focused on were really good, faithful, young Catholics as well. So
yeah.
You just have to keep up with the,
Right. Yeah, kind of like the sad thing is like they're only recognized for their youth because they died young. Like you're saying, a lot of them lived virtuous lives in their youth into old age and then died. That doesn't mean that their contributions as a youth weren't recognized.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Now,
next question. I think this is from a skeptic.
Okay.
Yeah. But so this question states, why is it that the Catholic cathedrals are some of the most ornate, lavish, rich temples filled with silver and gold, brass and bronze, massive stained glass windows with altars with a throne that a man sits at and glorifies himself as a king in his castle, some wearing crowns upon their heads, dressed in fine linens? What do you say to that, Joe? Answer this.
There is a lot to say about that question. In the second half, definitely sounded a little bit more of a statement than a question. But I would say, first off, the reason why we have beautiful cathedrals is because our faith is beautiful. And when we're in a house of God, we want to glorify God with what we see. So high ceilings, stained glass, innate designs, that's just glorifying God in the beauty that He is allowing us to create. And so that's sort of the reasons why our houses of worship are beautiful. I've never seen a priest sit on a throne. I've seen him sit on a seat where he sits during Mass, but I would hardly call it a throne. Sometimes they are at the top of an altar, which I think just has to do with getting quick access to the altar where he's, performing the miracle of the Mass. But hardly a king. Another aspect to that, which I think is important for everybody to know, is that the priest does not think of himself as a king, but as a servant of God, and as, in some cases where they wear, the bishops their hats, a shepherd for the people. And so it's not a place, it's really not, kind of like when you think of a good leader isn't somebody who's glorifying themselves but putting others first. That's what a priest is doing. He's, doing all of this for the people, but hardly not a king.
Yeah.
Christ is king, and that's it.
Yeah. I would like to also say that during the medieval era where there are kings and like there's feudalism, like priests also had their roles. It's like a peasant gets on better clothes and they think they're a king. No, they have a certain role in the kingdom. Maybe peasant isn't the great.
Yeah, well, a lot of certain orders of priests, they took oaths of poverty, and not every priest that you see sits on a throne. I've never seen a priest sit on a throne in general, but there are priests who take extreme vows of poverty. So the total opposite of what you've seen. I think where you're coming with that from is a more recent time in history where that unfortunately did happen, where there was some bad characters in the church. But for the better part of all of Christianity, for thousands of years, priests and the faithful held extreme poverty, and it wasn't, this extreme wealth that, people think the church has. Another thing to note is that although these buildings are beautiful and ornate and expensive, the church also gives as much, if not more, to people in need. So it's not like we're hoarding all the church is hoarding all the money for themselves, but they actually give out probably more than they take in. You may see the church's wealth as you may see the church's money as their biggest wealth, but their biggest wealth is in the people, the community, and the church is a people, not its materialistic things.
Our friend Nicholas asks, how would you go about evangelizing someone who just doesn't care about religion, like young adults in their 20s?
I think that, especially for today's youth and people in general, they were very logical people, and they need to see the truth. They need to hear the truth behind things. I think, and something my friend Oscar has said is that, the youth today they're a very compassionate people. Like when they see wrong happening in the world, they call it out. And I think that to evangelize, we just need to let people know the truth of the Gospels. It's not about controlling. It's not about putting down. It's not about calling out people for the sake of calling out. In the Bible, it says that iron sharpens iron. And if you want to become a better person, a better guy, a better woman, we have to elevate ourselves to a higher calling, to a higher place. And that's what the Bible, that's what organized religion, that's what the Catholic Church is about. It's about calling us to a higher place, to heaven. And everything else orients us to that. The laws, the scriptures, the traditions, it's all about getting us to heaven. And I think that I could argue on any point that it all loops back to getting us to heaven. All of these big issues that people today take issue with, it's about how is that good? How is that true? And how is that beautiful? And if it's not, then it's not orienting ourselves to heaven. And I think, like I said, people are compassionate, people are smart. They just need to see the truth behind what we're preaching. I think another aspect of this is, what is the point of life? It's a big question, but once you're clear on that, everything else falls into line. If the point of life is that there's nothing, then nothing matters. But if at the end of your life there's this opportunity to get into heaven, then that's what this faith is about. It's about giving us the keys, the tools, the ways, the witnesses to get us to heaven. And so once we find that faith of heaven and the truth in the Gospels, we're able to get there.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Michael's mother asks, how about something like, a lot of people argue against the faith because it is said that as long as you are truly remorseful for your sins, you go to heaven. Many people take issue with that because who wants to live a life according to his way and to end up in heaven with murderers? How do we argue that? How do we make sense of that? Mike's mom.
Yes. The issue about salvation and the thing that makes it such a beautiful part of this universe is that it was given freely by Christ. And if we search our own hearts, and I know I have, none of us are worthy, right? It was a free gift. It was given out of love. And so we should actually be rejoicing knowing that all are able to eat at the table of plenty with Christ and God forever.
Yeah, like think about it in your shoes, right? If you were a murderer, would you want to be saved or would you want to be damned? You know?
Yeah. We all fall short to the glory of God. It's just, how are we measuring that? And we don't measure sin. All sin is sin. All sin separates us from God. And so when we get back on track with God, that's what's beautiful.
Michael's friend John asks, Michael has a lot of people asking questions. So thanks, Michael. He asks, what are things someone can do to equip themselves to best share their Catholic/Christian faith with other people? And then I'm going to go to Megan's question, which is, how can we make sure that we are always evangelizing with love and compassion? So often I see social media fights between Catholics and other faiths.
Yeah. I'd say that the number one way that the faith is spread, it's through personal witness. If we are living out our faith as faithful Catholics and we are living lives that show fruit, other people see these fruits. If we're walking through an orchard and we see a tree, one with diseased apples and another with red, delicious apples, which tree do we think is healthier? Obviously, the one with the better fruit. And so we're going to ask, why is that tree doing so well? Is it the soil? Is it the sun? Is it the water it's getting? We want to see, what are people doing, living out their faith that are bringing them closer to God and generating fruit in their lives. And so I'd say the number one way that we can evangelize is by being a witness to what Christ has done in our own lives and sharing that with others.
Our wonderful associate producer, Michael Flynn, asks, if you were a youth thinking about joining the church, how would you go about doing that?
Yes, I'd say that you need to get connected with a community, because just like the early church flourished, it was because of community. So reach out to a local parish, local Catholic church, reach out to the priest. If there is a evangelization team, reach out to them. Look on Facebook, see if there's any events for the youth, for young people, a youth group.
Be careful what group you join, though.
Yes, use some discernment in who you're joining. YouTube, following some Catholic apologetics can also help you kind of lead and steer your way into more truth and a better understanding than even some, unfortunately, pastors have. But people who are specifically trained in apologetics know all of the church history and doctrine and how to properly answer questions. So that's another good resource. But I'd say, number one is get in touch with a community of other young adults, youth, who can guide you, who you can grow with, and who you can rely on in this journey.
So we can all fully rely on God.
And soon you will frog.
And soon you will frog with us and our friend.
I hope you're enjoying the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell notification button.